Hi everyone, this is a video on exercise 2, which is the drop count. Now, it seems like exercise 2 well, exercise 1 is more difficult than exercise 2. We got to do something about exercise 1 to make it not so daunting. Anyway, so in this example, let's go to the instructions. The idea is you're going to make a ball move down from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, and here's a demo. Let's just watch the demo if we can. Yeah, so here we have the ball is moving down to the bottom, and notice up at the top the counter is increasing, and each time the counter becomes a multiple of 5, the backdrop of the stage changes. Backdrop can be anything. Alright, let's get rid of that. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. You have the ball sprite and the stage. Now, the sprite has to tell the stage when it's time for the stage to change its backdrop. Note, the ball cannot change the backdrop of the stage. So the ball is going to send a message, or broadcast a message, and the stage is going to hear it, and when it hears it, it's going to change its backdrop. Now, to count the number of times the ball touches the bottom of the screen, we need a variable. A variable is a place in memory to hold a value, and that value can change. That's why it's called a variable. So the value of the variable can vary at any time. Now, how are we going to check to see if the count is a multiple of 5? Well, we can use an if statement. So the if statement, if block, is a way to make a decision. If something is true, do something. Otherwise, don't do something, or do something else. So we use the if to ask questions or to make decisions. Now the mod it stands for modulo division, and it is a form of division that gives the remainder as the result. Now that's all explained down here at the bottom. Here we have, this is normal division. We have a dividend, and we divide the dividend by the divisor, so we have 11 over 2. And when you perform that operation, there are two things that come back. One is the quotient. Quotient is the number of times the number of times that the divisor divides evenly into the dividend. So 2 goes into 11 5 times, and there's 1 left over. So 1 is the remainder. Now here's another way to do this. If I divide 2 into 11, it goes in 5 times. Now if you do the multiplication here, you get 10. Subtract 10 from the dividend, there's 1 left over. Now 2 cannot be divided into 1, so we say 1 is the remainder. So there is a way to retrieve this remainder value. Normally, with normal division in Scratch, you just get the quotient back. But we want the remainder. So back over to here. So that's what mod is referring to. And then the y value, in order to control the downward movement of the ball, we're not going to use glide. We're going to adjust the y value to make the sprite go downward. Now, to make any sprite go down, let's say this is the sprite here. If I want to make the sprite move down on the stage, I simply decrease its y value, and it will reposition itself to the new y value. So let's go take a look at some code. I have a working example here, and I'll sort of break it apart and explain what's going on. So the first thing that happens is we position the ball at the top of the screen. Now 73, 157, if I drag this ball up to the top, 73, now, oh look at that, I got it almost exact. So if you look at the X and Y down here, as you move a sprite around the stage, it will show you its current X and Y. So this program has chosen to position it at 73, which is somewhere to the right of center, and 157, which is toward the top. Now we know that the top of this, the y value at the very top is plus 180. But if you move the center of the ball to plus 180, notice that half the ball disappears. So that's why they only want the ball to go up to the top of the stage as far as the ball is concerned is 156 or 157. Now here is our variable called drop count that was created over here. Click on variables. You can create a variable. Let's just try it. So you simply give the variable a name, and you can indicate if the variable is meant to be used by all sprites or just this sprite. Now we only have one sprite, but yeah, we could have changed it to that, but in this case it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's how we create our drop count variable, and notice this checkbox. If I uncheck it, it hides the variable. The variable has not been destroyed, it still exists, you just can't see it. So I can turn it back on. Now there is a default variable when you start any new project. There already is a variable called my variable. Now we're not going to use that one, so we'll just hide it. So here is where we set the value to 0. Now over here on the right, on the left, you can see you can set the value of a variable to something. You can change it by a positive value, and that has the effect of addition. And you can change the value of the variable by a negative value, and that has the effect of subtraction. Now here, when your program is running, you can hide and show the variable. If you hide and show over here, this just happens one time. You cannot, this happens at the beginning of your program, not while the program is running. If you have a need to hide a variable while your program is running, you use these two blocks. Okay, so now we have the ball in position, and we set the we initialize our variable. Now we could go back to my blocks and create a new block, and we could have our setup block like we saw in exercise 0, and we could take this stuff and put it in here, and now we use our custom block called setup, and we just pop it in there. Okay, so we're going to do something forever. What is it we're doing forever? Okay, well, the first thing it's going to do is going to announce, or the ball is going to say what the count is. And here we have our repeat block. So we saw this in vertical drop, exercise 1. It's going to repeat. It's going to continue to decrease the y value by 5, change it by -5. And it keeps doing that until the ball is touching the edge. So this is how we move the ball to the bottom. So let's put a comment in here. Move ball to bottom. Or it's not really a move to the bottom, it's how about ball descends to the bottom. And we can do that. That's what's happening there. Now, here we want to check to see if it's time to change the backdrop of the stage. And this is probably the most complicated part of the program. So let's put a comment in here. Check if drop count is a multiple of 5. That's what the code is doing. And if it is, then we have to what? Go back to the top. Now, okay, they're doing this down here. Okay, this block is going to move the ball back to the top. Okay, you can line your comments up like so. Now, each time the ball descends to the bottom, we should increase the drop count. I'm not okay, I don't like doing it down here. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put it in here. So here we move to the bottom of the screen. This is going to, let's add a comment here, increase the drop count. Okay, ball descends to the bottom. When it's at the bottom, you increase the drop count. Check if the drop count is multiple of 5. Move the ball back to the top. So here we're changing it by a positive value, so that's addition. Now, this test, let's just pull this out and have a look at it. Oops. Let me pull out the whole thing. Let's stop it. So what's going on here? Let's decompose this thing. Yeah, we started off with this. Remember, we're going to, well, we started off with this. Well, we even started off with this. We have this thing called drop count. And we want to divide this by 5 and see if the remainder is 0. And if the remainder is 0, we know that this is a multiple of 5. So for example, if drop count is 10 and we divide by 5, the remainder is 0. If it's 15, we divide by 5, the remainder is 0, and so on. So we can take our variable and drop it into this operator. Now, where did we get this from? The mod came from the operators over here. This is the modulo division. This is the normal division. Okay, so we take the variable and we can pop it in. Notice this. Notice the shape of these holes. There are only certain things you can put in here. You cannot put in something like this. This has got a pointy edge on it. It won't fit in there. Oh, it did fit. Really? I don't think that's doing what I think it's doing. Interesting. I didn't realize you could stick something like that in there. Anyway, let's not get confused here. So we want to divide drop count by 5. And then we want to see if the result of this is equal to 0. So now we can take this expression and drop it in there. So now if we read it from left to right, if the drop count mod division or modulo division by 5, if the remainder of this is equal to 0, then we know it's a multiple of 5. So we can take this whole thing and snap it into here. So if this condition is true, then we want to broadcast this message. And this is where you tell the stage it's time to change the backdrop. Now, where did broadcast come from? Well, it's over here under events. So we have these different kinds of messages. So let's see, where is it? Yeah, so any sprite can broadcast a message, and any sprite can listen to see if I've received that message. And you can define the messages. So if we come over here to the stage, you can see we have a single green flag in this lab. And that flag is going to create this message, or let's move these together. Note if you press the equal sign over here, it will center your code. And now I'm going to zoom in on the code. So when the green flag is pressed, the stage will broadcast this message. And all sprites will hear this message because it's a broadcast. Now we only have one sprite, so when that sprite hears the message, then it does something. And the counterpart to that is the stage is then waiting to receive a message. It doesn't know who's sending it. Remember, we could have 100 sprites, and who knows who sent the message. As long as the stage receives it, it's going to go to its next backdrop. So this is how the stage and the sprite can talk to each other. The stage starts the conversation by saying begin over here on ball 2, Notice it says up here at the top, I'm going to put this back on here. Up here at the top it says, when I receive the begin game message, then I'm going to execute this code. And this code will just run forever. Now, in the same way, the ball will broadcast this message back to the stage. And the stage, when it hears it, it changes its backdrop.
It's 14 hours.
Okay, thank you. So let's go back to the ball. Notice there's no green flag in the ball. There's only one green flag in the stage. The stage is the ringleader. Now, okay, there's only one sprite in the ring or on the stage, but oftentimes, most of the time, you're going to have many sprites. Who should be in charge of starting the game, starting the program? Well, usually it's the stage. The stage is in control. All right, so if we just run this, you can see that it's running just like the demo. And each time the ball comes down, it's telling you what the drop count is, so you could get away without displaying this variable up here. And each time it becomes a multiple of 5, the backdrop will change. Here you can see the Y value decreasing as the ball goes down. Here you see the drop count increasing. Here you can see the ball announcing what the drop count value is. Which brings me back to here. When you say something, you can do more than simply typing in the message. You can drag. In this case, they put a variable in here, so it's just going to say whatever the value of this variable is. That's what's happening over here. Okay, and this thing will just run forever. So I hope that's clear. Some things to take away from this. Remember, you can create custom blocks to shorten your code over here. You should be using comments in your code. Let's move them up a little bit so they're not like so. This helps you to understand what the code is doing, and for someone else who didn't write the program to understand what it's doing. And the last thing are the communication between sprites and sprites, or sprites and the stage and the sprites, by using broadcast and when I receive. All right, let's end it right there.